Namaste, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Awakening Way spiritual community. We are grateful to be here. We're grateful that you are here. We are a New Thought spiritual community in the lineage of Dr. Ernest Holmes. And, whenever this time of morning comes, I always just allow Spirit to tell me what to say about this community and about what we believe. And what comes to me this morning is what a blessing it is to have this teaching, because this teaching is all about looking for the good and finding that good everywhere we go, in every situation. It's about life affirming beliefs. It's about happiness. It's about love. It's about joy. It's not about sin and hellfire and damnation. That has no place in this teaching. And so when times of stress and times of strain and trouble come, whether they're personal or whether they're social, whatever they are, this teaching gives us a foundation. It gives us tools. It gives us practices, spiritual practices for us to deal with, for us to move through whatever it is that's going on in our lives. And I'll tell you, I've been thinking a lot lately about what my life would be like if I didn't have this teaching. What would that be like, to not be able to go to spiritual mind treatment, to not be able to go to meditation, to not be able to go and pick up one of those spiritual books that we rely on. And these are the tools that we offer here in this community. We offer meditation and we offer prayer opportunities for healing prayer work to be done for anyone in need. We offer classes for us to discover more and more about this teaching and about the teachings of other spiritual faiths, because this teaching is based on what Ernest Holmes called that golden thread of truth that runs through all spiritual traditions. And so when we study this teaching, then we are opening to the wisdom of so many other faith-based communities. It's a blessing and it is a gift to be part of this community and to have this teaching as our soul work to be doing, to facilitate that ongoing spiritual evolution that we're all experiencing every moment of every day. So whatever it is that brought you here this morning to this community, to hear what's offered here, and wherever you go when this gathering is over, for this perfect, precious moment in time, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. Thank you for being here. Before we begin with the joys of the morning, I like to begin with a little brief meditation, reading by Ernest Holmes, and then our invocation, and then we'll move into the gathering. And so Ernest Holmes said this: "Today, I keep my consciousness steadfast with the realization that there is a spiritual power upon which I may rely. I turn resolutely to that divine source that knows no confusion, to that spiritual center that knows no fear. The spirit is not afraid of anything. The divine has no enemies. The spirit knows no opposites. Consciously, I draw close to my divine center and feel the warmth of its presence." And so, if you will, just allow yourself to go within and experience the warmth of the presence right in your own being, in your heart of hearts, in that place within, that still place within. Open and allow that awareness to just flood your mind, to flood your body, to flood your being with the awareness of that goodness, of that warmth, of that presence of life, of love, of peace, of joy, of the light of life itself, living in and as each and every person. I know that every person here is that divine emanation of the light of spirit, whole, precious, and complete in every way. And I know that this morning, each and every person will gather into themselves exactly what it is they need this morning, what it is they need to hear, what they need to feel, what they need to see. For this morning has many gifts for all of us. And so we just open to receive everything that is offered. The vibrations of the music, the message that moves us deeper and deeper into the awareness and understanding of who and what that divine presence is to us personally. The awareness that we are all here together with one common purpose, and that is just to be together in the spirit and in the love that is offered here this morning. And so I know this day is already moving, bringing forth its gifts, bringing forth its wisdom and its joy. And I know there's nothing I need to do but just give thanks and celebrate all that is about to take place. And I do that now. And I simply say, and so it is. Amen.
Kindness, gratitude, letting go all I need to know. Kindness, gratitude, letting go seeds I'd like to sow. Life happens, so thoughts happen. Thoughts happen, and emotions rise. Emotions happen. I get caught in my reactions, and I'm lulled to wherever my beliefs take me. My beliefs are of my choosing, though sometimes I feel I'm losing, because life happens and emotions rise. When I choose kindness, when I'm mad, when I choose gratitude, when I'm feeling sad, can I choose letting go when I think that I've been
Thank you, Karen. It was beautiful. Good morning. Good morning, beloveds. How are you today? I'm still tripping on Karen's song. Excuse me. Um, Today I'm closing out the month of our month of beginnings. Beginnings. You know, all of us who grew up in a Christian or a Jewish tradition have the first 4 words of the Bible burned into our minds. In the beginning, God. Literally interpreted, of course, it's about the creation of the world. Spiritually, however, Genesis 1 is a description of the process of creation, any new creation. Everything, it says, begins in God, in God's thoughts. In the beginning, God. Every living thing begins in God, in God's thoughts. No new experience, no matter how it may appear, begins anywhere except in the mind of the divine. Carl Jung once said, all problems of life, let me repeat that, all problems of life are ultimately spiritual in nature. In other words, the creative ideas that come from mind, it is our minds that misinterpret and corrupt them. I feel like I've given too many talks on this topic lately, and I'm hoping that I can quit. But the pandemic and the state of our political system continue to be a problem that is in our face every day. It seems like every day someone comes to me and says something like, this is the beginning of the end. It's going from bad to worse. Our country is falling apart. Our republic, with its democratic traditions, is ending. Everyone has their own ideas about how to fix it politically, but spiritually, people seem to run into a wall when they try to find a way to deal with what's going on. How, they say, can God allow this to be happening? And I suggest that it's not the end of anything, but the beginning of something new after decades of discontent and separation. We can't see what that something new will look like, but it's going to come from the collective consciousness of us all, good or bad, not from God. And that means that we have to come to a different place in our consciousness. If it's our choice to destroy this country, then God's will be expressed in some other way. If it's our choice to preserve it, God's will be expressed in that way. It's all up to us. God has nothing to do with it except to make available to us the creative consciousness to produce, to create exactly what it is that occurs. Genesis goes on to say, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. The earth was without form and the void, and the darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. There's an old joke that continues that by saying, it was still without form and void, but you could see it a lot better now. And I think we need to take a look at that idea. It hides a truth that we all need to look at. Metaphysically, the word light means spiritual illumination, awakening to the divine truth. It's time, I think, to let there be light on our time and our place. When we let the light shine on our apparent dilemma, we become clear that the divine is the beginning of all things, and everything that's happening is because of our resistance to the divine evolution that's occurring. It reminds me of an old adage that's been around for centuries probably. Don't tell God how big your storm is, tell the storm how big your God is. In the fear of the moment, we all have the wrong end of the stick. We're so busy telling the God about all the bad news that assails us, about the storm that's overwhelming us, that we forget to tell the storm how big our God is. The late Mildred Lissette Norman, mystic and activist who is commonly known as the Peace Pilgrim, amazing woman who dedicated her life to traveling around the country speaking about nothing but peace, said, "The world is not in need of saving. It's perfect in itself. It's not a mess to be fixed up. It's harmonious and whole, and it's our responsibility to harmonize with it, not to change it." In the light of spiritual illumination, we have to recognize that the vast majority of us, no matter where we are on the political spectrum, have been trying to force the world into some mold in a time and manner of our choosing, only to cause more and more discord. And that's going to continue until we surrender to the harmony of the universe instead of fighting it. We have taken the perfection of God's creation and we've perverted it into something chaotic and cruel because we don't understand it and we fear the appearance of the moment. And that's the collective consciousness of all of us. Something different needs to happen. And that's when I had a memory of an experience that Terry and I had years ago that addresses today's chaos perfectly in a way I hadn't expected. As most of you know, we have a son who lives part-time in Berlin, Germany, and part-time in Sicily, the city of Catania, at the south end of Sicily. And in some ways, the experiences that we're going through right now remind me of the experiences of the people of Berlin over the past century. I was reminded of our first trip to the city of Berlin. We'd been to Germany before, but we'd never been to Berlin before. And of course, our son and our new German friends pressed us to visit the remains of the Berlin Wall, Checkpoint Charlie, the Wall Museum, the Holocaust Museum, and all the other reminders of World War I, World War II, and the Cold War in that city. One of the places that we visited was the memorial, what they call a memorial church. It was an evangelical church, a Lutheran church, that was bombed out in the war. And it's in the middle of this huge shopping area, and they've left it as a ruin to remind everyone permanently of the horrors of that war. I think it was that moment that I was struck truly by how this city truly shaped the events of the 20th century. And as I considered the three historical moments that were somehow focused on this place, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, the Soviet era, I was struck by all the negative energy and pain that accompanied them. It was almost as if for the 20th century, all the negativity, fear, and limitation of the planet focused right there on the city of Berlin. It was as if Berlin were the eye of some kind of metaphysical storm caused by our collective consciousness. In this small area of Earth, mankind marked his attempts over and over and over to force upon spirit his idea of peace and harmony, only to create more of the violence and hatred and negativity that had provoked his actions in the first place. I began to see Berlin as a living example of cause and effect, where the law acts as perfectly as it does for each of us. Berlin has lessons for all of us about how big our God is and how small the storm over everything going on in our country right now is. One evening we went to watch the sunset from the dome of the Reichstag. It's the parliament building for the country of Germany, and the dome is is covered with glass. You go up there and it's a vista point where you can walk around the inside of this dome and see the whole entire city. And as we were standing up there, it had been built, by the way, by Kaiser Wilhelm II during World War I to try to appease the German people who were really angry at him because he promised the war would be over in a hurry, and it had dragged out for 4 years. And as we looked out over the view of the city, I asked casually where the remains of the Reich Chancellery, which was Hitler's White House, if you will, where it was, where it had been located. And one of our German friends, our son got upset with us first because he was embarrassed by that question, because he didn't like to have to remind his friends that this was the home of Nazism. But one of our German friends just said vaguely with a wave of her hand, oh, it was over there somewhere in the park. The government doesn't say exactly where. They don't want to make it a shrine for pilgrimage for the neo-Nazis. The city of Berlin finally seems to understand the spiritual truth that we overcome the past by learning from it, not by recreating it over and over. Having learned its lesson from this experience, it has released the past and let it be the past. Living in the now allows this city to do that. Trent's apartment is located on Friedrichstrasse, which is Berlin's Fifth Avenue, in a block of apartments built in the 1960s for Communist Party officials and bureaucrats. Checkpoint Charlie, the famous Checkpoint Charlie, which was the place where all of the diplomats and all of the visitors between East and West Berlin had to pass. It's about 2 blocks west of his apartment. And his apartment is located, the building is located where the Friedrichstrasse crosses the Spree River. And so he has this incredible view of the river. But directly across the street, actually kitty corner across the street from his apartment, is what's called the Tränenpalast, the Palace of Tears. It was the building where all the visitors coming and going in and out of East Berlin had to spend hours getting passes and being interrogated by the East German police. And so when people would get a weekend pass and go to visit their family in West Berlin, then they would have to go back to East Berlin. And people would cry because they didn't know when they were going to see him again or if they were going to see him again, but they had to do it. And that was true up until about 15 years before our visit, before that particular visit, that it had been the Palace of Tears. Now it's a museum that tells the story of the Palace of Tears and the separated city that is once again one. So, it's a reminder not to tell God how big the storm is. Tell the storm how big God is, because God, the universe, in its divine right action, made that happen. The Tränenpalast and the absence of the Reichschancellery are living proof of the spiritual principle that we should never try to get rid of or whitewash those parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of. We have done that in this country with our system's inherent racism and white supremacy, hidden them from view in the dark corners of our awareness. At the same time, we have somehow whitewashed it with statues of Confederate generals and naming military bases after them. Now we've been forced to confront them as they try to destroy what could be in the name of what never was. If we're smart, we see them as parts of ourselves that we're using for our harm instead of our good. And we can remodel them into something we can be proud of and enjoy. How often do we see and admire people like Helen Keller, who overcame her disabilities and turned them into strengths? There are narrow lines of bricks laid in the pavement of the sidewalks and the streets, and we casually cross them every day without ever thinking about what they meant. Until I asked the question and someone said, oh, that's where the wall was. We were crossing the wall every day, many, many times. but they left them there deliberately to mark the location of the Berlin Wall. The city no longer lets limitations of the past hold it back, but it doesn't forget the lessons that it learned from them either. And neither should we. Like Berlin, we need to recognize that the walls that separate us from our good and from one another are walls of our creation. When we recognize them for what we are, our own creation, we see them for the illusion they are and tear them down. No one else can do that for us. The lessons for all of us in this city over the past century are amazing. Right now in our country, it feels as if all the stored up negativity, confusion, and chaos in all our minds is centered on our politics and how we see our government. In the end, in Berlin, the Russians didn't tear the walls down. The US didn't tear the walls down. None of the allies tore the walls down. No passionate speeches from politicians or clever policies of any government tore them down. No flag-waving fanatics tore them down. The common people of the city of Berlin, with their own hands, tore them down. Trent was one of them, our son. We have a picture of him somewhere. I don't know where it is since we moved. Of him with his leg through a hole in the wall at the top of it with a chisel and hammer, breaking off pieces of the wall. In fact, he sent us a piece of the wall. But the walls couldn't come down until the time was right for it to occur. The important thing to remember is that the divine harmony of the universe, that perfect unity that God is, demanded that the wall must come down. Man's duality has no meaning in the universe. Don't tell God how big your storm is. Tell the storm how big your God is. How often in our lives do we struggle against life like that city, fighting what feels like an endless and hopeless battle against the negativity, division, and strife in our lives, only to look back in the end and realize that the only battle being fought was in our own minds. Only our resistance keeps us from our good. Only our fear keeps us from seeing that with or without our cooperation, life and love always wins. That's as true now in our time and place as it was in Berlin in the past century. New Thought pioneer James Allen, author of As a Man Thinketh, wrote, "Discord is rife in the outward world, but the inner harmony, the unbroken inner harmony, holds sway at the heart of the universe." Another evening, we were walking home from dinner through a neighborhood in former East Berlin with walls that were still pockmarked by bullets past. It was dark where we were walking, and Renata, Isabella, our granddaughter's other grandmother, made a comment about feeling ill at ease. We asked her whether the neighborhood was safe. She said, "Oh, there are no unsafe neighborhoods in Berlin, but I was born on the west side of the wall in 1945. And for 45 years after that, East Berlin was a frightening place. And it still was in her memory. She hadn't yet come to terms with the fact that the past is the past and the walls that separated East and West no longer existed. In failing to learn that lesson, the wall is still there for her. You get that? The wall still exists in her mind. And isn't that what we've done here and now? We live in a country divided, not by walls, but by two completely different realities. Believe so profoundly that there might as well be a wall. We have created our own walls of beliefs, and we continue to see them where none exist. Do you see the irony here? Living in what might be the safest city on earth, her fears created the monsters of her experience. Living in what might be the freest country on earth, our fears and beliefs have imprisoned us all behind our own self-made walls of judgment and fear. Dr. Ernest Holmes said, "Heaven isn't lost merely for the lack of a perception of harmony. Hell is the phantom abode of our morbid imaginations. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness." When we see our walls, For the self-created delusions that they are, they disappear, and only harmony can be left in its place. I think that the biggest lesson I learned from Berlin is this. For all those years, men and women struggled against the conditions of the city. East faced west over barbed wire and machine guns, and lives were lived in fear, constant fear. In the end, those machinations of humans meant nothing to spirit. When the humans of Berlin gave up their struggle in the exhaustion, really, spirit was able finally to take over, and in an instant of cosmic time, a new reality, a new beginning was made. And spirit healed what had been torn apart. The lessons for us all in the life of this city over the past century are amazing. Right now in our own country, it feels as if all the stored up negativity, confusion, and chaos in our minds is centered on our politics, our pandemic, and how we see what's going on. And in the end, it doesn't matter. It won't be Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative who bring the chaos to an end and tear down the walls that divide us. It will be we, the people, when we let there be light. When we give up the struggle and fear over what's happening to our country and return to the beginning by turning to the divine for the answers. What appears to be the end will be a new beginning. What the new beginning looks like will be up to us. It's up to us in our collective consciousness whether we create the country that could be in all its wonderful glory, or just another authoritarian state. Will we let our faith shape its new direction, or will we let the fear shape the new direction? I don't know yet. That's up to us. It's up to us to let the light shine and reveal the truth. 18th century English philosopher and botanist William Curtis said, "I realize that God is always at peace, even when God is expressing excitement as a storm at sea. God is still at peace." So let's stop telling God how big our storm is. And let's tell the storm how big our God is instead. Join me in a treatment, please. If you will, close your eyes, relax in your seats. Take a deep cleansing breath and know with me that there is one divine source. In the beginning, God. There is that one divine creative mind behind everything, no matter how it may look in the moment. We all are part of it. Every experience is part of it. That creative source is unfolding perfectly. The problem is we can't see the perfection, for it is infinite and we are finite. But I know right here and now that we rise above our littleness and we enter into our oneness with the divine and know the truth. We let the light shine on the truth of the divine. And we let this be the beginning of a new day, a new life experience, not just for ourselves, but for our country. And because of our country, the world. As we move through this experience together, we let the light of truth shine on the pandemic. We let the light of truth shine on our political chaos. We let the light of truth shine, not just on ourselves, but on our country. And in letting that light shine, all things are healed. not as we expect perhaps, but healed through divine right action for the highest and best of everyone. I know that this is true, and I accept this is true, for I see it unfolding right here, right now, before me. It already is complete. We have only to accept it to know that it is done. And so right here and right now, I declare for us that it is done. I have spoken my word of love and truth. I've let the light shine on the truth for myself and for my country and for my world and for all living beings. And knowing that it is truth and it's already unfolding, I release this and I let it go. And I say, and so it is. Amen.
I'm so blessed that I can sing songs of joy in everything. I can smile out loud, strong and proud, as all my dreams come true. I can thank the Lord above. Songs of joy and songs full of love. I can let words fly, never wondering why all my dreams come true. All our dreams are manifest. All our dreams are truly blessed. When you believe, when you believe, when you believe, it has to be true. So I thank you gratefully. I'm here because you've been there for me. And as I live and breathe, I believe you're my dream come true. All our dreams are manifest. All our dreams are surely blessed. When you believe, when you believe, when you believe, it has to come true. Pray to God, emotion strong. Pray to God in silence and song, and always understand we're nestled in God's hand. He's a part of you. We're God's dream come true.
Beautiful morning. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jimmy, for your music. Thank you, Dr. Frank, for a remarkable, courageous talk this morning, calling us to, once and for all, to take a look within first before we start looking out there. Thank you for that reminder and for the truth of what's happening in our world today. It was wonderful. Thanks to Ron Gallagher, who always makes the mornings possible, and everything runs so smoothly. We thank you, Ron, for for all of your work. You know, this doesn't come together just on Sunday morning. He has to edit these videos and he has to send them on to Frank. He has to get everything set up, the music to be ready to play on Sunday. It's quite a job, and he does it just from his heart. And we're so grateful to Ron each and every Sunday. Thank you to all of you for your tithes and your love offerings. We're here because of you. We continue to be here because of you, and we are grateful to be here and grateful that you are here. And just want to acknowledge you. You know, if you feel like your little dollar doesn't count, think again. It does, and we know it, and we're thankful for it. Dr. Frank began his Season for Nonviolence online program, which is a daily reading for, how many days is this, Frank? 64 days. It began yesterday. It is kind of a bookends of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. And these are readings from Gandhi, and then personal reflections on that, and some questions for us to mull over and think about to deepen our own consciousness and awareness around the concept of peace and nonviolence. Well, that's where we want to be right now, isn't it? You should have received it. If you are on our mailing list, you probably have gotten it. Frank wants you to know that if any time you decide that you would rather not receive the readings from Season for Nonviolence, you can unsubscribe at any time. Right down at the bottom of the email, you can just click on that. You will be unsubscribed from the Season for Nonviolence daily readings, but you will not be unsubscribed from our mailing list, the regular Awakening Ways one. So I can't imagine anybody clicking and saying they don't want to receive them, but that is an option for you if you just feel like you have too many emails coming in. So wanted to let you know that that was available for you. And also want to remind everyone that if there's an issue going on in your life, if there's something happening for you, and you've just reached the end, you know, you've done the prayer work yourself, you've meditated, it's just something that you just can't seem to get over. We can do prayer work for you. We have ministers and we have practitioners here that are ever ready to pray for you and with you around whatever issue is up for you. All you need to do is send us an email and say in the subject line that this is a prayer request. Say what you want the prayer for, and we will pray for you for a week. If after a week you feel like you would like more prayer support, then send us another email and we'll keep you on the list. If you want prayers for someone else, if someone has asked you, will you pray for us, or will your community pray for me? Feel free to do that. If you feel like you want to have some prayers done for someone, be sure to ask them before you give us their name, and that you get permission for us to pray for them. It's just spiritual consciousness is how we do things here. So we're happy to do the prayer work, ever ready to do that. And ask people around how these prayers work in their lives, because what happens for us is that we do the prayer work and then we don't really, often things happen, miracles happen, prayers are answered, and then our prayer team doesn't really hear the good news. So if we've done prayer work for you and you've had a demonstration, we call it, or a manifestation, kind of let us know, and we'll spread the word about what's possible to happen through the power of prayer. And with that, I just want to remind you that Timber Hawkeye will be with us next month. We love it when Timber comes. It will be a new month, and I'll be speaking next month, the first Sunday. Join us next week. Same time, same channel. And if you're ready, let's have a little closing prayer just to finish this beautiful, remarkable morning. So if you will, just allow your eyes to softly close. And just take a deep, full breath and feel that sense of fullness. That sense that something something remarkable happened this morning. Maybe you're not aware of exactly what it is, but you know that something has shifted in your mind, in your heart, in your very being. You can feel that subtle change, that difference within. And know that it is Spirit that has done its work this morning, lifting us higher in consciousness and taking us deeper in love, allowing us to expand and grow, to be able to take a bigger vision, a wider view, to see more light when we thought it was all dark, to know that good is ever present, and to know that our part, our place, our piece of the work is to simply hold the light within our own being, to let everything begin with us, to let that peace begin with us, to let that end of division, that end of separation begin with us, to allow us to open, to see, to change, to love, and to new beginnings. And so I give my thanks for everything that has taken place today, for I know that it was remarkable. And knowing that that is true and giving my deepest thanks, I just let this all go in joy, in peace, and in gratitude, and simply say, and so it is. Amen.